What is money and how is it created?
Well, actually, you know the answer to that question, but I don't think most of your colleagues do they?
No.
No? They don't teach it in school?
No.
And yet it's one of the most important questions in the whole world,
Yeah.
and certainly in Canada. Well, as you know, money is largely nothing but computer entries. The Bank of Canada, the governor used to say money is just a book entry, but if he were alive today, he'd say it's nothing but a computer entry. And our money supply today is about roughly less than 1% coins, which are minted by the Royal Mint in Ottawa, and about 2% of bills, which you always see them running off when they talk about money on the television. And 97% of the money is nothing but computer entries, and more specifically, bank deposits. And it's not real money. It's just, make-believe money. And there's a real problem with it because it's a Ponzi scheme, and it can crash anytime, and often has, and we're threatened with it again. But that is considered by our government to be money, and it's a system which benefits very, very few people because all of that money is created by the banks, BCM, bank-created money, and we don't have any government-created money to balance off the money that's created by the banks. Okay. Now, problem, once it's created, is if you run into a recession or something like that, and the banks start calling loans, and you start repaying the bank loans that you have taken out, then that destroys the money. Now, the actual mechanics, and you would understand this too, but you're rare, and you know that, because I've heard you speak on this subject publicly, and it's a rarity and it's nice to be in your presence again after years ago in Philadelphia where we were both on stage. And the way that the banks do it, I think would interest people because they say, well, how do the banks create this make-believe money? And it's when somebody goes in to borrow money, say to buy a car, $35,000 or something like that, the bank will ask them if they have any collateral, stocks or bonds, or a second mortgage on their house or a cottage or something. Or failing that, the signature of a family member or someone. As soon as the bank is satisfied with the collateral, then they get you or the person taking out the loan to sign a note. And the note will be a demand note for $35,000, repayable with interest at prime plus 2 or 3%, depending on the situation and the color of your eyes and that sort of thing. And then they go over and they tap their computer, and presto, $35,000 appears in your account that you can use to go out and buy the car. Now, seconds earlier, that money did not exist because the banks don't have money to loan. They have practically zero real money, I mean legal tender, but they have this neat thing going for them that they are allowed to lend the same money 20 times to 20 different people, which means they can create all of these loans for a very small amount of capital in their companies. And it's a Ponzi scheme. It's fraudulent, in my opinion. It's grand larceny to be able to do that. But that is the present system. And what we're proposing in our new social contract is to reduce that leverage whereby they can create 20 times the capital that they've got and lend the same money 20 times, which if you turn over another way means that they can buy assets for 5 cents on the dollar, which is pretty neat work if you can get it, and they can get it, believe me. To change that and reduce the leverage from 20 to 1 to 2 to 1 at the end of the 7 years. That's what I mean by changing the balance of power, so that all of a sudden they can't go out and buy the assets of the world for 5 cents on the dollar, which they have done, and which has resulted in 62 families actually owning half of all the wealth in the world. The number of houses you could put in a suburban street, 62 families, owning half of all the wealth in the world. Absolutely absurd. But that's the way the present situation is. And that's just one more reason why we have to change it and change the balance of power. So what we're doing is saying enough of that, and we're going to reduce that ratio during these 7 years that the social contract produces so much money. And then at the end of 7 years to divide the money that's created every year between the banks and the government. 34% for the government and 66% for the banks, which gives them their 2 to 1 ratio. And that is enough for them to do their legitimate business. And the 34% is enough for the governments to balance their budgets, federal, provincial, and municipal, and at reasonable tax rates. So it would work for everybody, but it would end the grand larceny that we have at the present time, where the banks can create 20 times as much money as they have capital, and where in effect, it's just legalized robbery. That's what it is.